Welcome back to Bible Journey. I am D.O. Wilson. We are in part 2 of the 70 weeks of Daniel. And as I said before, this might be a 3-part series, and it definitely looks like it is. And so we are back in. And last week we discussed what a 7-week period was, that back in Israel's history, back in their law, they had something called a week of 7 years, and that is important to understanding the 70 weeks. So like I said before, in our culture, we just think of a week as 7 days. Well, they had that, but they also had a week of 7 years, a period of 7 years, 1 week, right? Or a 7. And so in the mind of an Israelite, they understood it completely. So when Daniel's discussing this to his people and him understanding it, they got it, right? They understood it. But for our intents and purposes, I wanted to explain what a week of 7 years was. And so we're jumping in here, and we're going to go into Jeremiah, because he had prophesied that there would be the 70-year period, 70-year period of desolations, but then God would bring them back and restore the temple, the sanctuary, and the city of Jerusalem. But we're going to jump into where he says this, and he writes this down, the prophet Jeremiah. So we're in the 25th chapter. We're going to start with the 11th verse. So Jeremiah 25, 11, and 12. This whole land shall be a desolation and a horror, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. Then it will be, when 70 years are completed, I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, declares the Lord, for the iniquity and of the land of the Chaldeans, and I will make an everlasting desolation. So here, excuse me. And so right here in 11 and 12 verses of the 25th chapter, he's saying the land is going to remain desolate. Okay. And so we're going to jump on over to Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, chapter 36, where it explains why the 70-year desolation, among other things. Actually, there's more than one reason, one specific reason given in the Word of God and here in Chronicles that talks about that. So chapter 2 Chronicles, the second book of Chronicles, chapter 36, we're going to jump into the 21st verse. To fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land had enjoyed its Sabbaths. All the days of its desolation it kept Sabbath until 70 years were complete. Okay, among the reasons that they went into captivity, the nation of Israel, into Babylon: idolatry, forsaking him, not obeying the law, all these things. But a specific thing is said here in 36th chapter of Chronicles, because the land didn't receive its Sabbaths. And so for 70 years, every 7 years, 1 Sabbath, 2 Sabbaths, 3 Sabbaths, until the land had, so for 70 years, it remained desolate, right? And left alone, and it enjoyed its Sabbaths and rejuvenated and could be restored to what God would want. It was important to God. It's right here that one of the reasons, or for the reason given here by the word of the mouth of Jeremiah, that the land would enjoy its Sabbaths, right? And so it had all those Sabbaths it had all those years, 70 years, while the nation was laid desolate and in exile, to enjoy its Sabbaths. Okay. Now, like I said, so I explained what a 7-week period was. I mean, a 7-year period, a 1-week period was, and why it was important. And okay, so Daniel's reading these things in chapter 9, and he realizes the time has come for Israel, and specifically Jerusalem, and the sanctuary, God's house, to be restored. And he starts praying this through. He's intercessing for his nation and repenting. And as he's doing this, he receives a very important prophecy concerning his people and their holy city, Jerusalem. So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to go back to Daniel chapter 9. And so Daniel had been praying, and I read some of his prayer in the last episode, or in the last episode. But we're going to jump down some verses and get right into the prophecy. And so we'll start with the 19th verse of Daniel chapter 9. And so this is the conclusion of his prayer. O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, listen and take action for your own sake. O my God, do not delay, because your city and your holy people are called by your name. Even though they were in exile and under God's punishment, it was redemptive punishment. He was bringing them back. He hadn't forsaken them forever. Okay. Verse 20. Now we dive into it. Now, while I was speaking, this is Daniel the prophet, while I was speaking and praying and confessing my sin, so he confessed his own sin, and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before the Lord my God in behalf of the holy mountain of God. While I was still speaking in prayer, then the man Gabriel, or an angel, whom I had seen in the vision previously, came to me in my extreme weariness about the time of the evening sacrifice. So he's been praying and he's weary. So, I mean, he is really putting effort and time and fasting into this prayer, and he's tired. He's staying in there, though. He is praying this thing through, as old saints would say. He's praying it through. And while he's doing so, an angel shows up, Gabriel. And so Gabriel shows up, and in verse 22 it says, around the time of the evening offering, you can look that up. I'm not going to worry about that little detail here. Let's keep going. So, verse 22, chapter 9, he gave me instruction and talked with me and said, O Daniel, I have now come forth to give you insight and understanding. At the beginning of your supplications, the command was issued, and I have come to tell you, for you are highly esteemed. So give heed to the message and gain understanding of the vision. So he's about to give him knowledge of the vision here and understanding. So pay attention. Okay, here we go. Here's the 70 weeks. 24th verse of Daniel 9. 70 weeks, 7. There it is, that 70 periods of 7 years. 70 period of 7 years. 70 weeks have been declared for your people and your holy city. Okay, so it's declared for who? His people, the Jews, the Israelites, the Hebrews. For your people and your holy city, that's Jerusalem. So it's decreed for his holy people and the Jews and their holy city, Jerusalem. He goes on. Declared for your people, your holy city, to finish transgression, I'm tripping over my own two lips here. To finish transgression, to make an end of sin, to make atonement for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Okay, there's a lot there. 70 weeks have been, verse 24, 70 weeks have been decreed for your people and your holy city to finish transgression. That's the people that's his people there. That's in the context of the people of Israel, to finish transgression of the people and bring them to a life that God wants, right? Israel. To finish transgression, to make an end of sin, period. To make an end, to bring sin to an end, okay? To make atonement for iniquity. To make atonement for iniquity, that's to forgive sin. To bring in everlasting righteousness. Righteousness forevermore, right? Everlasting. Put an end of sin, put an end of Israel's transgression, to make atonement for iniquity. Because even back in the Old Testament, Hebrews said that the sacrifices of bulls and these things did not take away sin. The only thing that takes away sin was the crucified Son of God who shed his blood and rose on the third day. That's the only thing that truly forgives sin. Jesus' sacrifice in our place, you can have forgiveness of sin, right? And then to bring in everlasting righteousness. I don't see it now, right? So it's talking about a future time when God's going to bring sin to an end, atone for iniquity, and to bring everlasting righteousness. And then it goes on. To seal up the vision and prophecy. To seal up the vision and prophecy. The visions and the prophecy of the Bible, to bring that to a completion, and to anoint the most holy place. That is the Holy of Holies to jump ahead of here, in the final temple, what they call the millennial temple that Jesus Christ will rule from, right? To anoint the most holy place. That's the Holy of Holies. And so he goes on in verse 25. Okay, so he said a lot here, and we went over that. So we're going on to verse 25. So you are to know and discern that from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It will be built again with a plaza and a moat, even in times of distress. Okay. So he just said all these things are a decree for his holy city, his holy people, his holy city, that's Israel, to accomplish some things, to end transgression of God's people, the Jews, to end sin completely, to make atonement for sin, that was what Jesus did, to bring in everlasting righteousness the way God intended the world to be and people to be, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, that's to complete all the visions and the plan of God through the scripture and what he said through the prophets, and to anoint the most holy place, the Holy of Holies, in the temple that Jesus in the millennial will reign from. So he said all that, and he said, so you are to know and discern, to understand that from the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. What does that mean? Okay, it means that God, the 70 years of desolation is complete. God is now, Daniel has realized that. He's praying it in. That's gonna happen. And he's saying from the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, that's when the pagan king that still has Israel under subjection says they can go back and to restore Jerusalem, to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. Okay. And so until Jerusalem, until Messiah Prince, there will be 70 weeks and 62 weeks. Let me back up again to get a flow of this, so I'm not jumping in half of the verse. So you are to know and discern that from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. What he's saying there, there's two groups of time, two groups of sevens, 7-year periods. One is there's 7 weeks and 7 times 7 is 49 years, and that's to rebuild Jerusalem and to restore it, and that also includes the temple. So that's 49 years. That's one block of time. I'm going to, in the next video, actually get on the whiteboard and write this out so you can see it more in detail and you'll be able to follow along better. And so the 49 years to restore the 7 weeks, okay, to restore the temple, to restore Jerusalem, rebuild it, and that includes the temple. And then he says another group of time here, and 62 weeks. Right. 62 weeks. Okay, until Messiah prints. So that's 62 weeks is 434 years until Messiah the Prince. So from the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem till the time that it's restored and rebuilt, and that includes the temple, is 49 years, 7 weeks of 7 years, period, right? Period. 49 years. Then from that, after that 49 years is complete, there'll be 62 weeks until Messiah Prince. That's Jesus comes. And that's 430 years. So you got two groups of time. 49 years to restore the temple and Jerusalem, restore Jerusalem, rebuild it, and the temple. And then 62 weeks or 49 years to restore Jerusalem, and 434 years from that point of Jerusalem being restored till Messiah Prince. You follow me? I'll explain this a little more so you can see it on the whiteboard. There it will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It will be built again with a plaza and a moat, even in times of distress. So he's saying about the temple, or he's talking about Jerusalem, the city, is going to be rebuilt again with a plaza and a moat. A plaza being like a common area, and a moat, I'm not really sure. A moat, I think it's probably like a wall or some area of defense around the city. Because if you think back to like medieval times when they had castles, they had a moat around it, which was a ditch with a bunch of water so that an invading army would have trouble because there's this ditch of water that you've got to get through that's usually probably pretty deep. So if you take stuff like catapults and stuff like that and things right up to the castle, it's easy to kind of wage war against it. In this case, it's a defense. So whatever that moat is, I'm not sure what it was. It was a defense mechanism, so it's going to be like whether a wall or some kind of ditch, right? And so let's go into 26. Then after 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing, and the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and sanctuary, and its end will come with a flood. Even to the end there will be war. Desolations are determined. A lot there. Let's go back to the beginning of verse 26. Then after 62 weeks, I said that the two groups of time so far, the 49 years and the 434 years. And so that's what he's talking about right now. The temple's, I keep saying the temple was restored and rebuilt, but this is focusing on Jerusalem in itself. So as Jerusalem, that time to restore it from the decree was 49 years, one block of time to restore that. After that time, the 49 years, then from that time to Messiah Prince is 434 years. That's what or 62 weeks, 62 periods of 7 years, 62 weeks. Can be kind of confusing, but hang with it. from that time, the 62 weeks, after the 62 weeks or 434 years, Messiah Prince will be cut off. That's Jesus, and he was crucified. Messiah Prince. Messiah means smeared one with oil, or it means anointed one. And Jesus was God's anointed one. He's often, one of his titles is Messiah, right? And so this is speaking of Jesus here, but it's about to talk about another prince. It doesn't say Messiah Prince. It says Prince. And that's not clever. That is not, in other words, it's not saying just Prince because it mentioned Messiah Prince before. This is talking about a completely different person, as we see that his people destroyed the city and the sanctuary that they rebuilt during that first 49 period, that first 49 years. And so 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing. And so, a specific, precise prophecy of when Jesus himself, the Messiah, would come. 62 weeks or 430 years after the Jerusalem was restored. From that time on, and then 430 years after that, 434 years after that, Jesus came and died on the cross. Okay, these two times that he had talked about, okay. First the 7 weeks, the 49 years, and then the 62 weeks, 434 years. These two time periods together is 483 years. So from the time that the decree, the issuing forth the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem in Daniel's time, till the time that Jesus Messiah came, was 483 years. But it breaks it down in two different time periods that makes the 483 years, the 49 years and the 434 years, because it's showing the time it took to restore Jerusalem and the temple. And then from that point, the restoration, it would be 62 weeks, 434 years until Messiah came. Those two groups of time together are 483 years. Now remember, this is the 70 weeks, so there's a 7 missing. 483 or 483 years till Messiah comes. Up to this point, we have had 7 weeks and 62 weeks. There's 1 week left. To make 70 weeks, that's for a full 70 weeks. 70 periods of 7 years equals 490. Checking myself to make sure I'm on pace here. I'm on it. 490 years for the full 70 weeks. Well, like I said, I keep going over this, but I want you to get it, to follow me. The first period of time that it talks about is the 49 years, the seven weeks, and then the 62 weeks. So again, that together is 434 years, or 483 years. That leaves us 7. That leaves 1 7-year period, and the Gabriel is about to explain that. Okay? But we're going to go back into this person, the prince that will come. So I'll read 26 over again. Then after 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing, and the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, and its end will come like a flood. Okay. So Messiah Prince will come and be cut off and have nothing. And he is, and then the prince, the people of the prince who is to come, that's the Antichrist, or the man of sin, the Bible calls him. His people will destroy the city that Daniel is praying to be restored, that God says will in a 49 period. And once it's declared by the pagan king, it's going to take 49 years to do that. Later on, down the line, after Messiah Prince comes and is cut off, that was Jesus, he died on the cross and rose again, then the people of the prince that is to come, that's talking about the Antichrist, it's not talking about the Messiah, and will destroy that same city, that's Jerusalem, and the temple. His people will destroy it. That happened in 70 AD. After Jesus came, completed his ministry, died on the cross, rose again from the grave, and went back to heaven. Some years after that, in 70 AD, the city of Jerusalem was destroyed by the Romans, and because they had revolted, the Israelites did, and the sanctuary. And Jesus said and predicted this and foretold it in Matthew 24, where they were talking about the temple, and he said, you see these temple buildings, the temple, one temple, all these bricks that are together, not one of them are going to be together. This place is going to be destroyed. Okay? And that happened in 70 AD. So just as Daniel right here foretold that the people of the prince to come, that's the Antichrist, or the man of sin, would destroy this same city, Jerusalem, that Daniel is praying to be restored and will be in a 49 period, right? And so he goes on. Now he talks about the final 7, right? Verse 27 of Daniel chapter 9. And he will make a firm covenant. Who? The prince that is to come. Not the Messiah, the prince is to come. This is a false Messiah. And he will make a firm covenant with the many, that's Israel, for 1 week. There's that final 7. For 1 week of years, 1/7, he's going to make a covenant with Israel. And this to do what? To do this. But it will, for 1 week, that 1 7-year period, he'll make a firm covenant, and in the middle of the week of that 7-year period, that's 3.5 years, in the middle of it, he will put a stop to sacrifice, grain offering, and on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate, even until a complete destruction, one that is decreed, is poured out on the one who makes desolate. That's a lot. I'm reading from the New American Standard, and the New American Standard is a word for word. If you read it in the NIV, which I would encourage you to, it'll give you it's a little easier to understand, or something like maybe the Message Bible. But what that's saying is that this prince that is to come will make a covenant, a firm covenant with Israel, with the nation of Israel, for 7 years. There's that final 7. Up to this point, there's been 1/7 left. There's been 483 years. There's 1/7 left. And in this 7, he makes a covenant with Israel, to let them, obviously, to let them be at peace, to worship God how the law of Moses and God had prescribed to them. But in the middle of that week, he's going to betray them, break that covenant, and stop them from worshiping God as they do, right? As prescribed in the law of Moses, the first 5 books of the Bible. And not only that, is he going to persecute Israel, stop them from worshiping God. When he made a covenant to do that, he's the abomination of desolation. You can read about it in, Jesus mentions it in Matthew 24 chapter. And Daniel talks about it in some other properties. But basically, the Antichrist is going to put an idol in the Holy of Holies, okay? And declare himself God, as Paul talks about it, the Apostle Paul in Thessalonians. And so he's going to break the covenant, he's going to stop them from worshiping, he's going to persecute them, and then he's going to declare himself God and in the Holy of Holies, okay? And because he does that, he brings a desolation. So there's some pretty hard language there. I mean, difficult to understand because it's like a word-for-word translation the way it's worded. So, to put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering, on the wing of abomination will come one who makes desolate, even until the complete destruction of one that is decreed. That's the Antichrist and his kingdom, his empire. One that is decreed is poured out on the one who made, that's him and his kingdom, that makes desolate. That's the final seven. Okay. That's what they call the tribulation period. Actually, the tribulation period really is 3.5 years, but this is it helps you understand that there's a final seven where the Antichrist, Jesus said this, Jesus said, I have not come in my own name, I've come in my Father's name, and my own nation rejected me. The rulers of the Israel, the religious rulers rejected him. But he said, one will come in his own name and you will accept him. And that's talking about the Antichrist. So Israel rejected, the religious leaders of Jesus' time as a nation rejected Jesus. Now, a lot of people accepted him, right? But they did. And because of that, the city of Jerusalem and the temple was destroyed, 70 AD. But there's coming one, because they rejected the Messiah, that one, the Antichrist, will come and they'll think he's the real Messiah to come, where they actually missed it. And they're going to think this man has the answers. This man is the Messiah that God is sending to help us to worship God again and to be free from the other nations harassing us, and for us to be the superpower of God on earth, right? And the Antichrist is gonna deceive them, and he's gonna come into a covenant with them. But in the week of that final 7 years, he's gonna break and betray his covenant with Israel, and the blinders come off, and now they see that this is an imposter, that this is a false prophet, a false Messiah, and that they will realize that Jesus is Lord, and that he is their king, their Messiah to come, that they missed it. And according to Zechariah 12 and 13, they're going to repent and mourn as for one that mourns for a lost son. And they're going to beseech him, and the nation of Israel is going to receive Jesus Christ as a nation and be filled with the Holy Spirit. Because as in Jeremiah also said another time, speaking of the nation, speaking of mankind in general, people in general, but also speaking to the nation, where God says, you have a heart of stone. Your heart is so hard it's like rock, but I'm going to replace that with a fleshly heart and put a spirit within you that wants to obey and love me. And that's what's going to happen. So really, remember, when Gabriel said, I've come to give you understanding and knowledge, he says, from the decree to restore and rebuild Israel, or he did say that, but he goes, the decree, well, here, let me read that, so I don't get myself confused and further confuse you. 70 weeks have been decreed on your people in your holy city. So this 70-week period is centered on the Israelites and Jerusalem. Okay, to do all these things, remember to bring in righteousness and to sin, transgression, to seal up the vision and prophecy. Okay, so there's been the 70 weeks, right, this time period. And we just read about the final 7 before Jesus comes as Israel, the tribulation. They come to God. Obviously, God judges the world, and then he comes up and sets up his kingdom for 1,000 years, right? Well, there's a problem. There's something called this gap. Well, okay, so from Daniel's time, he realized that the nation was going to be restored. He prayed it through. The angel showed up and said, yes, this is going to happen. God said it in Jeremiah. Jerusalem's going to be restored. The temple's going to be restored. And for a period of 49 years. After that, another 62 weeks or 434 years from the time the city is restored till Jesus comes. It's 434 years. And that's a total of 483 years. And then the final 7 where he talks about the Antichrist making a 7-year covenant, a firm covenant with the people of Israel for 7 years. Well, there's a gap. Where's this gap? Well, the gap is called something called the church age, right? That's when, at that time, when Jesus came, ministered for some time to his people, and then died on the cross, rose again, and went to heaven. And then on the day of Pentecost, the church was born. And so, and the church was established and spread through, from Jerusalem there all throughout the world into this day. And that is called the church age. And also it's called, it's called the church age, but that age is going to end. Paul in Romans talks about something of the fullness of the Gentiles. That's not the time of the Gentiles. The time of the Gentiles is something else. But till the fullness of the Gentiles, that's God's bringing. At this point, many Jews are saved, but from the day of Pentecost, the church was born, many Gentiles are coming to God. Well, there's going to come a time where that's fulfilled, a full number of Gentiles, and then God goes back and focuses on Israel to bring them as a nation to himself to accept Jesus Christ, the true Messiah. Okay? So with that, I am going to end that here, but I'm going to say in this next episode, I'm going to go to the whiteboard and write some of this stuff out so it's easier to understand, because we're throwing out groups of numbers there, 7 weeks and then 62 weeks and another final 7. So it's easier if you kind of write it out and look at it. It can be confusing. But so we're going to do that, and that's going to wrap up this series next time on the 77 Daniel's, the 70 weeks. So like I said, a very important part of prophecy. Let me just say this. God writes history in advance because he's eternal. He knows the end from the beginning, right? And so in his word, through many different times, has called something and, told something a prophet is going to happen, and it did. And in this case, the precision of this prophecy is astounding. And I just want to say that to let you understand and realize that God is in control. He's a master of history, and he calls things ahead beforehand to let you know what's going to happen in the future, in his prophecies, to let you know that you can have confidence in his word and confidence in Jesus, right? So with that, I'm ending here. If you've liked this video, if it's helped you out, go ahead and hit the thumbs up. And if you want to, go ahead and subscribe for more videos, and stay tuned for the third part of the 70 weeks of Daniel. With that, I am out. Thank you.